We now move to our second presenter, Ms. Roula Majdalani, the leader of the Climate Change and Natural Resources Sustainability Cluster at ESCWA. Ms. Roula worked as the ESCWA Acting Deputy Executive Secretary between 2018 and 2019. She holds a master's degree in urban and regional planning, and she also has a number of publications in many aspects of water change and urban and regional planning. So we invite now Ms. Roula for her speech or presentation. Please, Ms. Roula, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Your Excellency, distinguished panelists, colleagues in Cairo Water Week, it is a pleasure to be with you all today in the plenary session on climate change and water security. Indeed, the interlinkages between water security and climate change are central to our work at ESCWA within the context of our Arab Center for Climate Change Policies here in Beirut. It is also a core area of support that we have been providing to Arab states under the RICAR, namely the United Nations League of Arab States Regional Initiative for the Assessment of Climate Change Impact on Water Resources and Socio-Economic Vulnerability in the Arab region, which was launched over a decade ago under the auspices of the Arab Ministerial Water Council. And I believe many of the panelists and participants already are partners and know about it, the RICAR initiative. The RICAR Regional Climate Modeling Ensemble show that average temperature in the Arab region are expected to increase by 2 to 3 degrees centigrade by mid-century and 4 to 5 degrees centigrade by end century. And this is a region where we are already peaking in terms of temperature, and the temperature are already reaching 50 degrees in many parts of the region. I'm particularly happy to have RICAR counterparts with me today, and here I want to say hello to Johannes from WMO, Tessa, who is a supporter of the RICAR initiative, as well as the Egyptian Ministry of Water and Irrigation, who have been with us since the beginning of the initiative, and which has the initiative that has provided a scientific base for informing climate policies and action in the Arab region, and continues to do so through the Regional Knowledge Hub and interactive data portal. And here I'm happy to see also complementarity and also areas of cooperation with Dr. Rami in his presentation, and in mentioning the importance of having access to data and information and accurate projection and accurate modeling. Climate mainstreaming cannot be pursued in a vacuum. It must be solidly based on science and on national policy priorities and regional specificities that can move us a step further towards the achievement of global climate goals. This is why we are pleased to see RICAR drawn upon to raise awareness of climate change pressures on water-dependent sectors in the region to help inform the way forward. Climate mainstreaming also needs to be aligned with various policy processes. This is why we are also pleased to work with the Islamic Development Bank to advance climate mainstreaming in the Arab states, which includes water as one of the 3 strategic sectors of focus. This work complements ESCWA support to Arab states with their engagement in climate negotiations, as sometimes national and regional priorities are not well represented in those global conversations. For instance, Article 2 of the Paris Agreement clearly articulates a global mitigation goal that aims to hold the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees centigrade, above pre-industrial level, and even just at 1.5 degrees centigrade to significantly reduce the risk and impacts of climate change. However, what about adaptation? Often sidelined in global negotiation is Article 7 of the Paris Agreement, that affirms that, and here I quote, the parties hereby establish the global goal on adaptation for enhancing adaptive capacity, strengthening resilience, and reducing vulnerability to climate change with a view to contributing to sustainable development. Yet despite this global commitment, nationally determined contribution called for under the Paris Agreement do not require reference to adaptation. Nevertheless, in the water-scarce Arab region, 18 out of the 21 Arab states that have submitted their NDCs have identified water and adaptation as a strategic priority. So this sets the stage for 4 key messages that I would like to share with you regarding climate mainstreaming in national development planning in the Arab region. First of all, it is important to articulate coherent commitments in the NDCs. NDCs establish how countries commit to advancing progress towards the global temperature goal, which are drawn from or subsequently incorporated into national development plans. Inclusion of adaptation measures in NDCs has been voluntary so far, but should be incorporated more explicitly in the next round of NDC submissions and in the next round of negotiation in COP26, particularly for developing countries and water-scarce regions where adaptation is largely a water story. To ensure effective mainstreaming of climate action into national or sectoral development planning, NDCs and national climate action plans should reinforce development planning priorities and policy commitments. And this includes, particularly now, post-COVID-19, green recovery strategy and national efforts to build back better and build back greener. Second, national development plans need to respond to water challenges in an integrated manner and in a changing climate context. Water is a cross-cutting sector, as you all know, and its management is even more complicated when climate change stresses are incorporated into analysis, policy, and planning. Indeed, 47.5 million in the Arab region are without access to drinking water services, and 70.5 million people are without access to basic sanitation. Meanwhile, 58% of the population in the region live in urban areas, with 2 out of 5 refugees in the world originating from the Arab region. So the intersection between climate change, water security, and health based on a human rights to water and sanitation principles are very important to incorporate in water security plans at the national and local level under changing climate. Agriculture consumes approximately 80% of water in the region, yet water productivity is low. Inefficient irrigation causes significant losses, estimated at around 60%. ESCWA and FAO are thus supporting the High-Level Technical Committee on Agriculture and Water, which actually met again yesterday under the auspices of the League of Arab States and on the sideline of the Cairo Water Week, to identify ways to improve water use efficiency in the agriculture sector with the aim of improving resilience to climate change. Finally, and here again, I'm happy that here to draw also the complementarity with Dr. Rami's presentation. Transboundary water resources account for 2/3 of freshwater resources, although basin-level cooperation to manage transboundary surface and groundwater resources remains limited, and with limited access to data and information. Mainstreaming climate consideration in water security thus requires looking at all these water challenges through a basin perspective. And here again, ESCWA is pleased to collaborate with the World Bank on such a work in the Mashrek region. Thirdly, institutional structures help, but coordination across institutional structures could help even more. Some countries have established national climate change committees to support cross-sectoral coordination, but sometimes responsibilities for NDC preparation or climate negotiation is limited to a smaller group of agencies, and this can only result in policy fragmentation or in excluding important water-related priorities from national communications or commitments. Hence, coherence and coordination across institutional structures are important to consider. And for example, the interplay between water security and climate change with agriculture and ecosystem have to draw on policy coherence across a number of sectors and a number of institutional arrangements, and for a lot of horizontal coordination for that matter. Furthermore, NDCs is one very important instrument to track progress towards the implementation of the Paris Agreement, but it's not the only one, and therefore should also be aligned with national adaptation plans to ensure coherence with other climate and water-related planning frameworks, including the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. For instance, most Arab states have made reference to water in their voluntary national reviews to the high-level political forum under the 2030 Agenda. But unfortunately, the nature of the SDG tracking process has a tendency to silo reporting on SDGs, and that includes SDGs 6 and SDG 13, to name just two. It is also important to foster integrated views on how across sectors, water, climate change, energy, agriculture are at an interplay in this process. Fourth, climate mainstreaming in water plans needs priority setting and finance. Focus on Article 2 over Article 7 in the Paris Agreement also extends to climate finance flow to the Arab region, where funding for climate mitigation exceeds funding for adaptation by a factor of 1 to 5. ESCWA is thus working with UNFCCC, the League of Arab States, and member states to prepare a needs-based climate finance assessment and strategy for the Arab region. Through this collaborative effort, we have found that of the 18 Arab states that have incorporated water in their NDCs, most have identified their water needs in terms of projects related to wastewater treatment, desalination, water harvesting, irrigation, and early warning systems. 12 Arab states have also provided an estimated cost of their adaptation needs, which includes proposed investments in the water sector as well as in the agriculture, forestry, and land use. However, while the identified climate finance needs for adaptation in water do exceed all other adaptation needs, it is still well below what Arab states collectively need to be able to strengthen resilience, as needs have not yet been fully defined. Vulnerability hotspots of water-dependent sectors identified by RICAR could therefore help provide a scientific basis for improving the projection of adaptation needs at the country and regional level. So as indicated above, climate mainstreaming cannot be pursued in a vacuum. We must be strategic in how we identify our needs, our commitment, our technical capacity, and our needs for technical assistance, for technology transfer, and for financing support. We have to be strategic in our commitment to balance between mitigation and adaptation to climate change, and be very clear about how we measure progress, so that we can ensure that we meet our priorities and needs and rights for sustainable development for current and future generations on the basis of leaving no one behind. In closing, I'm pleased to share that ESCWA will be organizing the regional preparatory process for the midpoint comprehensive review of the International Decade for Action on Water for Sustainable Development, 2018-2028, which will be convened at the United Nations headquarters in New York in March 2023. The regional preparatory meeting for the Arab region is a very important landmark and will aim to capture the integrated nature of water security and climate change interactions across sectors and within the framework of water-related goals articulated through national planning related to the 2030 Agenda, Paris Agreement, and the Sendai Framework. So we hope that you will all be joining us and you will all be able to contribute to this important regional process from now until then. Thank you, and I look forward to responding to any questions or comments you may have. Thank you very much, and over to you, Mohammed.
Thanks very much, Ms. Roula. Very, very informative speech. Probably not everyone knows about the RICAR initiative. It's a big initiative, as Ms. Roula informed us. Also, the points that Ms. Roula made about the mainstreaming climate change into our policies, clear commitment to the NDCs, coherent and integrated approach, setting the priorities, and finding the finances. Thanks so much, Ms. Roula.